Hey guys, I want to just take some time. I ran across a post on X the other day that I thought that warrants some sort of analysis, kind of some talk about what's going on with it, and where I think the political needle might move if things don't happen carefully in what people would call the quote MAGA movement, and where things like that go. And I guess what we've seen running around X as a liberal activist Ryan Shead is apparently running for president in 2028. Now I'm linking this particular X post in the description so you guys can go read it for yourself. I'm not going to go put it on the screen for this video, but if you guys want to go check it out. I mean, it reads like a regular standard sort of liberal left wing wish list. It's just the things like, okay, we got to go expand the court. Billionaires are purchasing elections and universal basic income and regulate crypto because it's evil crypto and people might be able to go buy stuff that we can't trace with the cash that we already can't trace from the with the federal government. They might go do evil things with that, and it's a big liberal wish list. I know one of the big ones on there that I think is going to push people is I will sue Ashley Babbitt's family to recoup the exact dollar amount of taxpayer dollars they were awarded by Trump's government. Knowing people like that, he's probably going to go back and try to sue them for more, for actually going out and using it or investing it or whatever it is that they did with it. And I don't care what it is that they did about it. I give less than two fucks about Ashley Babbitt. I don't think that she's a hero. I don't think that she's this criminal felon that they try to go back and paint her as. I'm somewhere in the middle of that, honestly. So that's that. But I mean, you kind of know how something like this is going to read based on the fact that the first line in it is, my first act will be an executive order reversing anything signed by felon Donald Trump. And the next will be term and age limits for Congress and the Supreme Court, which, I mean, that second line is going to be, you need Congress to put age limits in. So they're not going to go back and vote against their own interests. I don't care how many executive orders that you try to go back and do something like this. So we had a short discussion in the Discord about this, and I'm actually going to leave the discussion up for right now. I'm not going to change the topic. If anybody who sees this video and sees the link to the Discord in the description of this video wants to go back and comment with it yourself, I mean, one of the first things that one of my friends in the Discord tried to point to and tried to say is this is the most evil thing that we've ever seen, and this is the most liberal thing we've ever seen, which none of this is liberal to begin with. It's all heavily authoritarian because they're not liberals anymore, they're leftists. But his first problem was Mr. Shead is going to, my first act will be executive order reversing all the executive orders of my predecessor. Well, that's standard practice. I mean, that's one of the first things that Big Don did when he got in was, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to overturn everything that Joe Biden did by executive order. First day, all gone. Which Joe Biden did to him. He did to Obama. I mean, that's become standard fare at this point. An executive order is really, because you can't make laws as the president, which apparently this Ryan Shead fellow didn't get the memo on that because, well, a bunch of the stuff on here he can't do without Congress, and a bunch of it is going against Congress. So an executive order in and of itself is basically just nothing more than the executive branch deciding how they are going to enforce the laws that Congress brought forward, like executive amnesty. Congress didn't have to pass a law to give the amnesty to the illegal aliens under Reagan and Obama. Well, I guess it wasn't really executive amnesty with Obama. It was deferred action. So they'd be political pawns forever. They just decided not to do anything with them. They didn't make a law, but he's chosen how he's going to enforce the law. So you guys can go read through this basically for yourselves and see where you think of it. I think most people who are going to run across this video are going to be heavily against this, except for the people who get really, really pissed off about something I say on X. Follow the link in my X profile and go try to find something to downvote because they're mad at me that I disproved their point on X. The reason that I actually brought this up and I wanted to talk about this was there were a couple lines that are in here that really got me thinking about a specific political situation that we have based on the tit-for-tat back and forth between administrations and parties and everything else. And then the Star Trek geek in me looked at another one and said, hey, we actually kind of have to talk a little bit about this because most of you who are Star Trek fans have seen this before, have seen this episode before. And of course, I'm talking about past tense from Season 3 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the best Star Trek series that there is. But let's talk about the one that's the political tennis court first, and that is towards the bottom, towards the very end. Mr. Shead writes, I will revoke every January 6th pardon and reinstate judge and jury rulings. And I mean, that's actually been something that's been talked about a lot going into the Biden years. Biden threatening to do this to Trump's pardons from his first term, and now Trump coming in and making threats, or I don't know that he actually made a lot of threats in and of itself for him, but I know that there was a lot of situation where people were talking about, well, he should go back and reverse the preemptive pardons because it's just Biden going out there to try to protect his buddies, and if Trump goes back and preemptively pardons his whole family and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Mike Johnson, and then oh my God, Joe Biden should go back and reverse all those pardons. So the reversal of pardons has been something that's actually been talked about a lot. In fact, even the MAGA crowd, not necessarily again Trump himself, but even the MAGA crowd has been very demanding over the series of last-minute pardons that Biden put through for various drug dealers, various people that these people don't think should be out and ever go and see the light of day again. That's the part that interests me. That actually interests me a lot, is how to actually define what the presidential powers are and how they fit constitutionally with the people that are out there. Now, pardons are a specifically tricky one for me, and even since Biden went on his big pardon spree, auto pen or not, it's been something that's been kind of sticking in my mind because that's the first thing I heard is, Trump's going to go back and get in and he's going to reverse all these pardons, and it's moot for the fact that he pardoned all these people anyway. And I'm talking specifically about the people who did go through, indicted, convicted, time served, things like that. These are the first ones that stuck in my head. Now, I've been very, very open about the fact that even if I don't like the particular president that's in office, which has been pretty much a constant as long as I've been a legal adult, because I hated Bush, I hated Obama, I had high hopes for Trump in the first term, but probably about 2018, I wasn't a real big fan of him anymore, and anybody who's watched Contemporary for more than 5 minutes know that I absolutely loathe the Biden administration. And given the fact that we're talking about the big, beautiful spending bullcrap, I'm not a gigantic fan of Trump again. So there really hasn't been a president that I've liked since ever. I couldn't even say that I really particularly like Clinton because I was way too young to know. And realistically, I liked Clinton because I was told to like Clinton. Looking back, there was a lot of stupid crap that happened because of that and where that went and what we did. But going back to the pardons thing, no matter who the party is, no matter who's in power, what you think about the people that are released, if I were on the Supreme Court, let's be completely realistic about this. There'd be no reason for me to issue any rulings whatsoever Because if I were on the Supreme Court, that would mean that every single other eligible person, and probably every other person in the world, would already be dead. Because I'm the last person you want on the Supreme Court. Mr. Jury Nullification here is the last person you want on the Supreme Court. But, hypothetical, hell is frozen over. I'm on the Supreme Court. And a case comes before my court to talk about how we look and how we view pardons, and the ability to reverse a pardon from a previous president. And again, we're going down the path of the indicted, convicted, and time served pardons. My first sight would be straight to the Fifth Amendment. And it raises a lot of red flags to me. I don't think that a pardon in that situation can be reversed. I don't think there's any legal authority to reverse it because of the line in the Fifth Amendment that clearly states that no man should be held in jeopardy of life or limb for the same crime twice. So therefore, he's been held in jeopardy. He's been convicted. He's done time. And then, yes, the pardon came through. If you reverse the pardon, that means you go back and throw his ass back in jail, and there again, he is being held in jeopardy of life and limb for the same crime twice. Now, if he goes back out and reoffends, does the exact same crime again, throw his ass in jail. It's like a guy gets out for murder, and he goes back and commits another murder. It's not double jeopardy. You go throw him back in jail because, okay, the first one is, hey, here's the murder of Jane Doe, and then he goes back out, does his time, gets good behavior or whatever, gets out early, and then he goes out and murders, I don't know, what's a good common name? I don't want to step on anybody's toes. Becky Chad. Stacy Chad is what I should have done. Chads and Stacy, you remember that stupid stuff from the Canada protest? Anyway, so he goes out and murders Stacy Chad. Now, he's not being held for the murder of Jane Doe again. He's being held for the murder of a different. So it's a completely different crime. So yes, he can face down. But yeah, going in and reversing the pardon, putting these people back in jail, means that they're facing down life and liberty and the jeopardy thereof for the same crime twice, for the exact same crime twice. And I don't think that that's actually going to fly. Yes, people who are in favor of lock all them J6ers up, and or on the other side, lock all them criminals and drug dealers that Biden let out. Those who are in favor of either one of those things, they're going to try to argue and say that because Joe Biden did it, it was bad, or because Donald Trump did it, it was bad and it was wrong, and these people deserve to be held in jeopardy of their life and limb a second time because, you know, evil orange man or evil old man or that kind of thing. But honestly, I don't care. And I would even go further on and say that even in the instance of the auto pen, which is one of the big controversies, and it's actually under investigation by the Trump administration. I wanted to talk about it on Contemporary this past week, but I had an ultrasound to go to, and we did not have time to do that in the hour and a half that I was allowed to do Contemporary this past week. Even in that case, auto pen or not, if the ink is dry and these people are back out, tough nuggies prosecutor, you can't hold a person in jeopardy of life and limb twice. Keep an eye on them, see if they reoffend. And I've got a feeling, especially in the Biden case, that a lot of those people are going to reoffend. And hell, the J6ers. Some of them are already back in jail on complete different crimes. That had nothing to do with, quote, insurrection. They got back out and they did other stupid crap. Probably because they're dirt poor right now, because you held them in prison for 4 years and they weren't able to make any sort of income. And being poor makes people do crazy crap. Now, what would actually be an interesting aside to that would be to look at the idea of what would happen with the preemptive pardons that so many of our friends on the left were deathly afraid that Trump was going to do for himself and his family and everybody he knew, so they could go back and commit crimes for the rest of their lives, be it as it whatever the hell it is. And what Joe Biden actually did on his way out the door for his son, well, I guess his son was convicted, then they pardoned that one, but for his son and other crimes that could be dug up, going back to a certain date, and Fauci, and I believe Liz Cheney was on that, and his wife, and I think Hillary was on that. I actually should, before I started recording this video, I should have looked up the list of all the people that were preemptively pardoned even though they had not faced any sort of justice. It'd be an interesting court case to look at, honestly, to see, because they were never held in jeopardy of life and limb the first time, if a pardon like that could be reversed and you actually could go through and try and convict, because that would not run afoul of double jeopardy. That would actually be a single thing. They've never been indicted. They've never been convicted. They've never gone through the legal system for whatever crime that it is that the Trump DOJ seems to think that they've committed. And I don't know what the right answer is for that either, by the way. I'm going to be completely honest with that. I'm not sitting here saying that, yes, this would absolutely be constitutional to go back and try them again, or reverse the pardon and try them and arrest them, and etc. And I'm not going to say, no, it would be totally unconstitutional to do that, and you're a stupid person for even thinking of that. That is one, honestly, in my mind, that could go either direction, because double jeopardy is not in play. So that's what I have to say about that. If you guys do want to discuss that and tell me I'm a moron, put it in the comments. Leave a thumbs up if you like that. There was one other one that I did want to talk about with this. It was something else that came up in the topic chat for this. Let me see if I can find it in this list here. I think I went up too far on that one. Yeah, here it is. Earmark federal funds to build homeless communities with night security. This will cut down on panhandling and tent cities popping up in unwanted areas, while ensuring our unhoused population have a secure place to sleep and get water. Now, on its face, honestly, this does seem, especially if you're a more liberal individual, like a possibly good idea, because you've given the people a place that they can be safe. You know, you have night security to make sure that nobody comes in and screws with them, and make sure that they don't go back and kill each other while they're in this place and things like that. And you go back and you process them, you get their names. Hey, maybe you can even go and get them some medical care while they're in there and things like that. On its face, it seems like it's a good idea. Now, I mentioned when I first started in the intro to this video that this made me think of the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode Past Tense. The two-parter that dealt with the Bell riots when Sisko and Dax and Bashir went back in time and wound up in the districts, which were on the tipping point of unrest. And I was thinking about this, and I talked a little bit about this in the Discord. And by the way, if you haven't seen this episode, what the hell are you doing with your life? Decca, I'm talking to you on that one, by the way. Go back, season 3, beginning of season 3. I think it's a two-parter, end of season 2, beginning of season 3, actually. I think it was one of those cliffhangers that enticed you to go back and watch the next season that Brandon Brega was so fantastic at. Brandon Brega had a lot of problems with his writing, but he was really, really good at making you want to come back for the next season by leaving a cliffhanger. Anyway, with streaming, that's kind of almost it's kind of almost a moot point at this point. But regardless, the districts, looking back. Now, in Star Trek lore, we don't get the lore of how this all started. We just know that it was coming to its head in August of 2024 in San Francisco, where the initial riots started. But I have to imagine, and I have to believe, because it was a place for the homeless, or the unhoused, as our more left-wing friends like to call them. It was a place for them to go back and supposedly be safe and get the help that they needed and not have to worry about panhandling to everybody else out there and all this other stuff. And I look at something like that and I say, I'm sure that when the U.S. government in the Star Trek universe, in what was probably the mid 2010s at that point, if kind of given the idea of how long it takes for unrest to go out and something like that, and where they thought technology was going to go at that point, because we didn't see any smartphones in that episode, which came out in the early 90s, mid 90s. I think it was 95 was season 3, or when season 3 started. Anyway, and what their vision of what the future was going to be at that time, like, we didn't have cell phones to try to accelerate unrest or anything else like that. So I'd say probably it took about 10 years for them to get from, hey, this is a great idea and it'll help keep our streets clean and help keep people taken care of and everything, to, hey, this is the equivalency of a concentration camp. And people are just hiding us because they think that we're others and they don't want us to be seen and things like that. I mean, it's a great episode. If you're not familiar with it, do go back and watch it, and watch the rest of Deep Space Nine while you're at it, because very, very political show. But regardless, when I hear earmark federal funds to build homeless communities with night security, that's the first place my mind goes to. You start off with the best of intentions. You start off thinking to myself, this is going to be great. We're going to get these people off the street. We're going to get them the care taken care of. And then, after 10 years, your funding is starting to run dry. More and more people are coming in here. And there's unrest and people aren't allowed to leave. They're not allowed to go see their families. And it becomes a gigantic prison. And I don't want to see that for anybody else either. I'm highly against this part of things. Yes, even if it is done with the best of intentions. I see how things like this can go. We do have a homelessness problem. We do need to figure out what's going on with the homelessness problem. And yes, I do understand that in some cases people don't want to be helped. They're either too proud to be helped, or there's mental illness involved in some cases, or things like that. And in a lot of cases, again, there's not really a lot of funding for this. And yes, there are politicians that are exacerbating this here, because it looks really, really good when they make the political other guy say, we just want to put these people in prison. Oh, that other guy wants to put these people in prison. Vote for me, because they're just mostly peaceful people that only want to be out there and live their lives, so we should just take care of them and do things for them and this and that and the next thing. And then, of course, they never do anything. Anyway, that's what I think about those two. Link to the original tweet with the full wish list will be in the description down below. Go back and read it for yourself. I just wanted to talk about those two things, because that's a thing. If you want to talk about it in the comment section, do that. Hit the Discord if you would rather go back and do that, because it's a good place to go back and have more full discussions about these things with other, mostly like-minded people. So, yeah, take care.